A very warm welcome to the Emerging Technologies webinar series hosted by Faculty of Information Science and Technology, University Kebangsaan Malaysia, with our partner today, Equinix Business Solutions from Indonesia. Just two housekeeping notes for those who are attending this webinar. To obtain your e-certificate of attendance, do wait until the end where we will provide the QR code and the link in the chat box at your Facebook chat. Do capture the QR code or link and fill it in for you to obtain the e-certificate. For those who will want to ask questions to our speaker, Mr. Julyanto, please type your question in the Facebook chat box for me to read it to Mr. Julyanto. You can always ask questions while Mr. Julyanto is giving the talk, but I will only address it once he has completed his session. So that's two housekeeping notes. Now, allow me to welcome our Dean of Faculty of Information Science and Technology, Associate Professor, TS Technologies, Dr. Nur Hizam Safi'i, Deputy Dean of Industry and Community Partnership, FTSM, Faculty of Technology and Science, and Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Rizwan Yaakob, fellow academics and students, ladies and gentlemen. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Peace be upon you and a very good morning to all. We are indeed blessed today to be able to be on this online platform, to be with our speaker this morning, to hear from him about open source-based technopreneurship. Thank you to our speaker, Mr. Julyanto, and his team for making this possible. Yeah, and thank you to all fellow audience for making your time to watch and listen to the talk and be with us this morning. Faculty of Information Science and Technology, or better known as FTSM, has been organizing series of webinars that focuses on the technology used by the industry, and the Emerging Technologies webinar series is one of the platforms where the sharing session by the industry will help to open further opportunities and also perhaps further collaborations, not only for the academics at FTSM, but also to others who are participating in this webinar. This webinar is indeed timely, as we know that open source technopreneurship provides insights and practical guidance on harnessing the power of open source technologies to drive innovation, foster collaboration, and create sustainable businesses in the current digital landscape. Now, without further ado, allow me to introduce our speaker this morning. Mr. Julyanto Sutandang, the good-looking young man who is with me this morning, is none other a technopreneur and a full-stack engineer from hardware to business process. Now, he has more than 30 years of technical and professional experience in the IT world. I read some of his, what I would say, a short snippets of himself. He's a geek. All right, he's a computer geek. He started his career as a virus researcher in high school. Now, mind you, fellow students out there, he started from his high school and deepened his focus on IT by majoring in computer system at the 10 November Institute of Technology in Indonesia. He developed several antiviruses and IT articles published in magazines, Microdata, Infocomputer in his private time at the university. With his expertise, he was entrusted as a software developer in Paris, France, and then became an IT support and developer manager in Indonesia. Now, as a founder of PT Equinix Business Solutions, which has been established for more than 15 years, he has helped more than 100 plus companies in Indonesia, especially corporations in banking, government, telecommunications, and retail, to be free from vendor lock-in, gain independence by utilizing open source as enterprise class solution, replacing proprietaries. He became a pioneer of the use of open source in Indonesia to achieve self-reliance, independence, and sovereignty in the use of information technology. Mr. Sutandang also actively spreads the spirit of open source through several meetups, gatherings, seminars, and conferences related to PostgreSQL in Indonesia, Japan, Singapore, Nepal, Russia, and other ASEAN countries. He is also an active person as a guest speaker at more than 36 universities throughout Indonesia. So for fellow students out there, do ask Mr. Julyanto lots of questions because he is very experienced. And of course, until now, he's still actively writing articles and updating IT information on his Medium at https://julyanto.medium.com. Now, Mr. Julyanto will be speaking about open source-based technopreneurship, which will focus on how technopreneurship can contribute to society. Hence, we shall hear from him. And once again, if anyone has any question, please put it up on the Facebook chat box for me to address it to Mr. Julyanto later. And as Equinix tagline, to open source is to open mind. Let's open our mind and listen to Mr. Julyanto. Please welcome Mr. Julyanto, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Dr. Yazrina Yahya. Good morning to everybody. Good morning. So I would like to greet the Dean of Faculty of Information Science and Technology, Associate Professor Dr. Nur Hisam Safi'i. Good morning. And Deputy Dean of Industry and Communication Partnership, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Ridwan Yaakob. Good morning. And the moderator, Dr. Yazrina Yahya. I would like to say thank you very much for having us in this event. Let's start. So actually, I would like to share, I didn't have any kind of information very specific in technical things, but if you would like to have a technical discussion, we open after this. Ibu Yazrina, if possible, if there are some students or audience would like to ask in the middle of the discussion, I think we also open for the discussion.
Okay, boleh Pak Julyanto. All right, yeah. To address, please do ask. Okay, don't stop.
Ask and then we can have discussion.
Yep.
Yeah. So let me start the slide. So I'll open the slide. Wait a minute. Sorry. Oh, video, yeah. Okay. So before we start, I think I will start the video first about our company. Is it okay, Ibu Yazrina?
Yes, definitely. It'll be a good introduction for the audience to know Equinix, yeah?
Yes, thank you.
Dengan transformasi digital, kita sambut revolusi industri keempat.
Disrupsi selalu terjadi setiap zaman. Saat ini, kita memasuki era revolusi industri keempat dengan open source sebagai kunci perubahan. Kita sambut era baru dengan penuh semangat. Menggunakan open source dengan baik memerdekakan kita dari ketergantungan vendor lock-in. Dengan semangat kemandirian, kita lakukan research dan implementasi open source demi mencapai kedaulatan yang seutuhnya, membebaskan diri dari ketergantungan teknologi asing. Equinix mendedikasikan dirinya untuk menjadi perusahaan solusi IT terdepan dengan keunggulan research dan open source. Equinix selalu memberikan solusi yang terbaik dan menyeluruh untuk enterprise. Mewujudkan nilai-nilai kemandirian, kemerdekaan, dan kedaulatan.
Okay, thank you, Livia. Okay, we start, yeah. I'm sorry about the video. Maybe it looks like advertising, but actually, I want to increase your confidence about how open source so far delivering solution in Indonesia. So let me start my slides. Okay. This talk or discussion talk about through technopreneurship we contribute to our society. Okay, it's about me. So this already explained in the video, and then here we come. So lately, open source already taking chance into majority of software in some enterprises, from the operating system to databases and any other like big data and etc. You can see in the picture, so they are growing the usage of open source over the time. So I think in this year we have quite 50-50 of usage of open source compared to the proprietary or commercial license. So this is a great opportunity for us to take into action in the developing country like Indonesia and Malaysia to get the benefit of open source, to become independent solution provider like we do, and we can give alternative solution to our society, our business regarding to replace the proprietary software into open source based product or license. Right. So maybe we will talk about what is technopreneurship. I think this is not really much difficult to understand. So maybe most of you already understand what is technopreneur. So I will try to refresh what is technopreneur or in our discussion. So it is an entrepreneur who implement the technology as part of business process and solution. Or we can also consider the technopreneur is a strategic economic pillar of the country, because if you have very much technopreneur in our society, so most likely the solution can be resourced ourselves locally, and then it is quite strong supporting economy, because technology is the one that we need for moving forward. If we don't use any technology, maybe we cannot having quite the high value added of products. To have a value added product with a high value, so we need technology. So we need technology resource from the outside or maybe inside. So technopreneur is the one who has a responsibility to resource the technology, and we can deliver the solution locally to our country. So we can consider the technopreneur is an economic strengthening agent to increase the value added and opening more job opportunity. Okay, so, and then what is technopreneurship? Any action related to building the sustainable business which enables solution based of technology. So this is the thing that we would like to discuss. So by using open source, we have some opportunity to become technopreneur. And by having more and more technopreneur in the country, so we can having more independence, and yeah, to have resource the solution locally. Yeah, this is about technopreneurship and technopreneur. And and then so what is the open source based technopreneurship? So maybe we will talk about the open source itself. What is that? Maybe there are so many terminology in the internet, or maybe talking between friends, colleagues. So what is all about? What is open source all about? So maybe the first definition, open source is the software who is public domain and share it publicly. If we have some software that we can download from the internet, somehow we can say it is open source. But actually not really, not all, not every software that we can download from the internet is open source. Maybe some pirate can be, but if you download it from GitHub, perhaps most likely it is open source, because if you put software in GitHub, you have to agree with the license term, and most of the license put on GitHub actually afraid it is a public license. It is a license who copylefted. So first factor or first terminology of open source is software who is public domain and share it publicly. And second, actually has a public license. So to have to ensure that software it has a public license, you can check to the opensource.org. This is quite important. Normally in Indonesia, actually, people didn't really much understand about this. So if the software claimed to be open source, so the software has to have license which is listed in the opensource.org. At least that's the second requirement to become or to be called as open source. Because open source itself, it is a terminology. It is coined by Eric Raymond in the 1998. Yeah, in 98. And Eric Raymond creates the website opensource.org. So it is an open source initiative. So every open source claim license, so every license claim to be called as open source, it should be listed in the opensource.org. There are so many hundreds of licenses listed there. So this is the second criteria of open source. So I go to the next. Yeah. Having supported by community which has no single entity of majority developers. Maybe the third is quite hard to understand, because maybe most of us didn't really much do the research about which this software coming from. So the third criteria of open source is something like needed if you want to use open source in the business. But if only we wanted to use it as a part of the research or as a part of learning, perhaps number 1 and 2 is enough. But for having put on the business, maybe we should consider about the third criteria. Why? If the open source it is not really supported by public community, so perhaps one open source which is supported by a company. So this is quite not really much being understood by most people, but there are some software that claim as open source and has a license which comply in the opensource.org, but actually this software is developed by a company or by some entity which single entity, means maybe a quite close community. That's maybe not really much good for the business if we don't understand that, because the roadmaps and the future of the software, it is not really much quite public announced. So we don't know what happened in the future with the open source, with the software. If the software is driven by a single entity of majority developers. So maybe the third criteria we can discuss later. So this is the terminology of open source that we are discussing in this talk. So if we wanted to define or to have a definition of open source based technopreneurship, is the technopreneurship is enabling or using open source technology. So our solution will be based on the open source and helped by the resource provided by open source. So that's mean the open source based technopreneurship. Okay. So I'm going to the next. So what is the challenge? What is the challenge that we face if we want to use open source as part of our solution? How can we take advantage of the open source as part of the business solution? So actually there are so many kind of business, multinational company, corporations. There are some big, middle, and small. And then the kind of industry like banks, financial, telco, retail, distribution, and etc. Which one is fit to use open source? Which one is really much having advantage to use open source? So this is the challenge that we face if we want to use open source as a business solution. So actually, what I'm trying to discuss in this talk is in the corporations. We will talk about how to use open source in the corporations. Actually, we can use open source in any kind of level of industry, like big, middle, or small. But for the big one, it is quite difficult to use open source without any help for the vendor who has expertise in open source. If we target the small industry like SOHO or SMA, maybe it is not really much beneficiary to both of us, the vendor and the clients. So maybe we can discuss about the target market. So actually that I'm trying to address is the big corporation or big companies which require very much a factor to use open source, and therefore what we have to should prepare whatever it is to provide solution to them. So we talk about how to use open source in the corporations, not in the SOHO, yeah. And then what kind of industry, like financial, telco, retail, distribution, manufacturing, trading, and etc. Actually, we can use to any of kind of industry, but maybe the most needed for the open source is the industry who use very much IT product like banking, telco, or maybe also retail. So almost all client is coming from the financial institution and telecommunications, and also some of them is retail companies. So this is the big three industry that we trying to talk in this event. Okay. So first of all, we should understand very much deeply about open source. Let's go to the talking about the license. Okay, actually, there are hundreds of licenses of open source, but maybe we can categorize the license of open source into three categories. Okay. First, the license is GPL. GPL is shortened of General Public License. It is the first license issued by community of open source. Actually, before open source coined by Eric Raymond in '98, we call it as a free software. So GPL is the first, I think, the first license announced by Richard Stallman in 91. 91, I think. This license is to protect the software which already becoming open source software, and then we'll try to make it every descendants to become open source. For example, Linux operating system. I think Linux kernel, yeah. Linux kernel registered as a GPL version 2. And since Linux kernel is licensed by GPL, any kind of descendants, it is also GPL. We cannot create the commercial product from the software which licensed by GPL. So it is good for the user, but maybe it's not really good for the somebody who wanted to make a solution, because we can this software cannot be becoming commercial software, but it's okay. So this type of GPL-like open source license. And the second is BSD or MIT-like. This license is quite, free, yeah? Giving freedom. So if the software licensed by BSD or MIT-like, we can download and we can relicense into any other license model, including the proprietary. That's possible. The software for this example is Postgres. Therefore, there are so many. Yeah, there are so many commercial products which derive from Postgres, and it is okay because Postgres using Postgres license, which similar or have the same kind of model with BSD or MIT-like. So, for example, like IBM Nidiza is a data warehouse from IBM. They are using Postgres version, I think version 7 as the base of developing the system, the application of data warehouse. And then there are so many others, like like Google has a cloud of database, which is actually inside this Postgres. Amazon also have it. Ali also have it. It is okay because Postgres using BSD or MIT-like open source license. Okay, that's the second. And then the third is attribution-like. So some software maybe require us, if you want to use it, to mention their original author, so to attribute them. So by attributing the original author, okay, maybe Ibu Yahya, you want?
Yeah, Ibu Pak Julyanto, there's a
Yes.
question from Dr. Hasimi. Who governs? Who governs the open source listing license?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will answer the question.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Like I mentioned before, it is the open source terminology is coined by Eric Raymond. So maybe I will try to share the websites. Wait a minute. Okay. Ini munculnya apa? Okay. So this website, opensource.org, it is the website made by Eric Raymond, who the first time coined the terminology of open source in '98. This website actually having so many information and also governing. I'm not sure it is governed or not. So this is OCI approved license. Open source license are licenses that comply with open source definitions. Actually, lately they are mentioning open source definition. Before I didn't see it. So open source actually is not concatenation of open and source. It's not it is a terminology. This terminology is defined, if you can say, by this organization or these websites. So the first criteria of software who can be called as open source, it should have the license which comply with these websites. If this can be considered as the one who govern, maybe yes. Maybe that's my answer. Is there any other?
Not yet, Mr. Julyanto. I'll get back to you if there are more questions, but I think that answers, because it helps for those who are interested to get into the open source. Yeah, so thank you for that.
Okay, so let me continue. So attribution is the one quite simple, but it requires you to mention the original author. You can put the original author in any kind of display. Yeah. So let me remind that there are hundreds of open source license that maybe is not fit to one of the three category. Yeah, but actually the reference of the license who can be called as open source license or copyleft is the one who listed in the opensource.org. So why? So maybe I will discussing why if some software can be used, can be downloaded, and also can be re-licensed. But why there is a license for that? If there are some question about that. So despite non-commercial, why it is licensed? Because to avoid claim in intellectual property claim. So if, for example, like somebody who create a product and they are claiming the IP inside the product, but actually it is derived from the software, that perhaps the software is not licensed as a open source license. Perhaps the original author cannot claim anymore because it is already claimed by the descendant. So it is quite not really good, right? So just to license, we call it copyleft because Yeah, the commercial license we call it copyright. So non-commercial license we can call it as copyleft, something like that. So to avoid the IP claim. So actually, we people in the open source community didn't didn't like or didn't want to patent the software, just to license. And then maybe the second explanation or reason of the why it is licensed, because to ensure the development will always continue, because there will be always open source in the development to be continued by others, something like that. So this is about the license of the open source. To understand the license, we can understand how to do it in business. So we never, or we don't want to deliver open source in business, and it's there is something like hidden agenda or violating the business conduct, etc. So we have to understand the license. So by understanding the license, understanding the community, understanding the aspect of open source, maybe we can consider open source into three types of category. We can say that the pure open source, and then the company endorsed, and then the third is we can call it as a marketing gimmick. So there are some software which claim as open source. It is having open source license, but the developer actually a company. There is no public developer. There are some community in the public, but actually there's a users community, not developers community. So because the developer is not public and it is held or maybe funded by a organization, maybe a company who actually this company create the software and selling the software, the commercial license, but also distribute the source code to the community as open source. That's happened in many cases, yeah, many softwares, many applications. Mostly it is applications, business process software. So it is not violating any kind of law, but if the users understand the software actually company endorse, then the user should do the right action. For example, like to purchase the commercial license instead of using the open source available in the internet. So because this software actually made by a company who actually usually the software which is released as open source is not really much as mature as the one who commercial, because this company trying to having penetration to the market, for example, like giving users to use it, but they don't want to be claimed by the user which use it without any purchase, right? So we call it as open source. Use at your own risk, something like that. This company may be quite confident that if they are releasing the software, but not really much major, and they're having the major one in their kitchen or their company and sell it as a commercial, they still have grabbing the market. So there are so many kind of software like that. Is company endorsed. This software which released to the public maybe mostly can be used for what is it? Solving the problem, business problem, still able to use as business applications. But maybe there are some limit of them. There is no violation, but I would like to say that if the client wanted to use this kind of software, client should understand this kind of condition and has the right decision to use it, whether they should buy the commercial one, the right one, or maybe buy from the local vendor who has expertise to understand the software. Now, this is not really much, I can say that not really much safe for the business, because the development is on your own, not in the public. But that's I think that's still possible if somebody want to do it. I know some company in Singapore and Vietnam doing this way. Those company actually using the software made by something like quote unquote open source, and they are using on their own. As long as we have some enough people to understand and to develop the business applications, maybe it's still possible. So from the company endorse, we go to the marketing gimmick. If a company endorse, actually this software, the open source version software is able to be used in some business process or limited business process. In the marketing gimmick, it is perhaps even worse. We cannot use it anyway, or there are some bug which quite important, can be stopper for the operational, or maybe the software is having dual licensing. So if we use the software for the non-production, maybe we don't need to buy the commercial license. But if we use it for the commercial, for the production system, we should purchase the commercial. So that's something like we call it a marketing gimmick. So this is kind of software which actually cannot be used, because we only use it for testing, for evaluating, but we cannot use it for production. So this is the lowest one, marketing gimmick. It's not anyway. It is not be used anyway, because there's a licensing, or maybe there's some handicap in the source code which cannot be used for the commercial. So I go to the commonly endorsed, we've already explained. So commonly endorsed is quite better than the marketing gimmick, because we still able to use it. But I don't I don't endorse a client or a business client to use this one without purchasing the right license, because if you want to use software in the business, we have to ensure there's no hidden agenda, there's no potential problem, because if the software becoming the stopper of the business operation, usually it will quite nasty to it cannot for example it will stop the business in majority. Yeah, we cannot tolerate this problem when the software for the business being stopper for the business. So the number one of the category is pure open source. This is the really pure one, which developed by the community across the world, and then having, of course, having the open source license, and there are roadmaps. It is stated publicly in the website, some website, yeah. For example, like Linux, and or maybe it's not in the website, maybe it is in the mailing list, because usually the pure open source is the software which using by most people. So actually, yeah, infrastructure software, something like, operating system, database, messaging, big data, something like that. We can consider as infrastructures. It is not a business process. It is not for any kind of related to specific business, but it is general. So this software is developed by so many people around the world. For example, like Postgres. The community of Postgres is ranging from the Europe, Russia, Asia. Most Asian developer is coming from Japan, and then US. So there are so many people who understand and develop and contribute to the softwares, and there are roadmaps. We can discuss with the developer. We can have a conference and meet the developers directly, face to face. I don't think we can do this kind of conference in the company endorsed or even marketing gimmick type of open source. So I think we have explained about the pure one, the company endorsed, and the marketing gimmick. Three of them is able perhaps to be used for the solution in the business. There are no violating the law as long as we use it accordingly. Like I suggest, if you want to use software, we just endorse. We should purchase the license. Or maybe the third one, we can try to evaluate the software because already there and we can download it. But if you want to use it for production, just purchase the license. So it is okay. But for the second, the company endorse, and the third, maybe we don't think the same. What is it? It is not giving us vendor lock. If it is not avoiding us from vendor lock-in, actually, the company endorse and the marketing gimmick, because we still depend from the company and the one who create the model of business. So maybe that's the difference between the pure open source and the company endorse or the marketing gimmick. So which one is giving us the freedom, the really freedom? I think the number one, the pure one. The second and the third is okay if you want to use it, but don't consider it is a real or pure open source, because it is not actually. It is only the they are using open source term as a part of their marketing to approach to the clients. Okay, I think it's enough. Maybe if you have some question about this, please go ahead. We can discuss. I think it's good if we can discuss directly, because I didn't really know whether my explanation is understood well by the audience. Okay, maybe I go to the next slides.
Just a quick
Okay.
one,
Yes.
Pak Julyanto.
Yes.
Because you were talking about what open source is, all right? There are a handful of students here who's listening to you. Some of them comes from Indonesia, actually.
Oh, okay.
All right, from Padang. Okay.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, so they're from the Polytechnic Padang.
Okay.
Now, just to for them to get a hands on, because you were talking very much on what open source is, right?
Yes.
But what's the role of open source software, particularly in the technopreneurship? Now, for the young ones, you know, when they graduate, they can. Some of them may have this interest in open source, but how do they go by? Like, what was your experience?
Okay. So my intention is to the student to learn this open source which is pure. That's the first suggestion, which is pure, the pure one. And the second, since the open source, the pure open source mostly is infrastructures.
Right.
Really much in the applications, like a software for this kind of business, software for this kind of applications. So
okay.
Yeah, focus on the infrastructures.
Right.
Maybe.
Okay. Please proceed, Mr. Julyanto.
Okay. So maybe I will continue first. Maybe in the next slide, maybe some explanation about what kind of open source that student can be learn to becoming the technopreneur. Okay. So maybe this is the questions that maybe wanted to ask by students. What is actually open source software? It is free. Yeah, freedom for modify, create, reproduce, embed. And this is the free, it is freedom, yeah, not the gratis, something like that. It is legal already, we already explained, it is legal. As long as we know the license, we can use it legally. And is it good? Yeah. We can, what is it? We can refer to the example of implementation of Linux. Linux actually is the most used operating system in the world because Android is running on top of Linux OS. And there are some projects which quite active creating product. For example, like Apache, they are Tomcat, Kafka, ActiveMQ, etc. So this kind of software, it is real open source, pure one, because it's running from Apache. So if you want to becoming solution provider and focus on one of this kind of software, it is very good because this kind of software like Kafka, ActiveMQ, and etc., it is infrastructure and being used by so many applications, supporting application, because it is infrastructure. And then it is produced or part of product of the Apache community. So it is very good. Is there any hidden agenda? So if you use the pure one, like we already discussed before, I don't think there is possibility to put some hidden agenda inside the project. Actually, if you understand very well the community, the source code, the license, maybe we should come to the conference somehow. We should go to the discussion of development so we can understand inside the core community, the developer community. And then from that understanding, so we can conclude, is there any hidden agenda or not? Most of pure open source, I don't think there is possibility of hidden agenda. So there's no hidden agenda for the pure one, pure open source. Okay. So what we get from the open source? Freedom. Yeah, we don't depend on any vendor or principles. We have very much freedom because we can check every line of source code. There is no potential backdoor made by intention. There is no nasty code. So because everybody can check it. So we have 100% freedom. And then 100% legal. Because it is licensed by copyleft, right? So we have legal, we have freedom, and then we have sovereign. Okay, maybe Ibu Yazrina, you have some?
Yes, Pak Julyanto, there
Yes.
is a question from the audience, Mr. Fauzi Inshrin. He asked, is there a possibility that the pure open source become company endorsed or marketing gimmick? And would it affect the already built project and the community in the future?
Okay, that's very good questions. So giving me another aspect of explanations. Thank you.
Yeah.
So if you understand the license, I don't think there is a possibility because if there are somebody or some organization trying to create commercial version of that, which is it is happen in Postgres, the other person can still carry on the open source. For example, like the core developer open source right now, it is coming from US, Japan, Russia, Europe. So it is so variety, so many places. If, for example, like one of the company which is built for PostgreSQL commercial. I didn't want to mention the brand, but there is a commercial version of Postgres, which developed by some of the developers of the core developer of Postgres. It is not means that this company is the commercial version of the Postgres, because there are some people who supervise the marketing, who balancing the informations. Maybe if there are no many people who developing or creating solutions in many countries, perhaps if this developer becoming a single entity, which is quite major, maybe in that term possible, but the license itself, the open source license itself, still there. So there are still possibility for other people to derive the open source software into another, to guard, this open source to become still as open source. So as long as the developer of the open source is quite spread around the world, I think that the possibility is quite small. And what kind of company endorse or marketing gimmick, we don't know. But if the question is, can become non-pure, yeah, but very, I think very small, yeah, because in terms of the license still there, we cannot avoid, to close the license. I don't know how to close it, but the people, I don't know, yeah. If the developer is becoming the single majority, yeah, maybe, but very little chance, because most of the open source project like I think Postgres, Linux is already developed by so many people in the world. I think it's very quite small opportunity to become non-pure.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the best answer I can give.
No worries, Pak Julyanto. I mean, it's very interesting because we've got questions from the audience. There's another one from Muhammad Nur Akmal. He is asking, he mentioned about with the unfolding of powerful AI tools, yeah, such as ChatGPT Lite, Midjourney Lite, Vol-E, and others, would the open source market be disrupted? Could it create a new challenge or a new opportunity for technopreneurs?
That's quite hard questions.
Tough questions, but I think
tough questions.
Yeah, I think they want to know, because we know that the IT world is moving towards AI, right? So how do we go about, in terms of open source, how can you go about this, Mr. Julyanto?
Okay, so as far as I know, the ChatGPT who claim can give you the answer of source code, as far as I know, it is not really much mature source code. So I don't think something like ChatGPT or AI today able to create source code or to continue the development of open source. I don't think still possible in today. Yeah. So most of our infrastructure right now is depend on open source. For example, like Linux OS. And cloud is using Postgres. Some of them using MySQL. I don't know how they are using MySQL, because MySQL is actually not really much open source. If you use MySQL for the commercial, we should buy the commercial license. So maybe if you use cloud cheaper, if you wanted to use cloud cheaper than any other database, maybe we have to use it the Postgres version. So because open source is becoming the infrastructure of the world, and I think there are so many people who wanted to disrupt or to rid of the bug of the open source as fast as possible, right? But I never heard about the news on the contribution of AI to continue the open source development. I don't think they exist right now.
Okay,
Maybe
maybe
that's
not.
the
Yeah,
best
but
answer I can have.
maybe in the future, Pak Julyanto, maybe, you know, you'll never know. Yeah, it may open up another.
If you ask my opinion about AI,
Yeah.
I don't think AI is very good. AI is very fun, but I don't think AI can replacing our serious production system of IT system right now. In the future, I'm not really sure, but I don't know. It is maybe still far.
Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot of work. At the end of the day, when you look at what open source is able to do, like you say, it provides the infrastructure. AI is on another, I would say, aspect of how it. I mean, it's a two different thing, right? Until so and when, we can combine this. Well, we'll never know.
Yeah, but I can give some what is it bad maybe like RDBMS database.
Yep.
RDBMS require quite complex algorithm to query the data, and the data becoming bigger and bigger. That's why people tend to go to big data, because their data is quite big.
Right.
And but we still need to create complex query. We still need to create programming query or etc. Maybe if there are some quite smart AI who can becoming the manager of the data and smartly, like, I don't know, deep learning, something like that, machine learning, can what is it, mine the data very fast. So we maybe don't need RDBMS whatsoever. Maybe.
We shall see when the day comes, Mr. Julyanto, if it ever comes, Okay, please proceed, Mr. Julyanto.
Okay, thank you. So this is what we can get from the open source: the freedom, legality, and our sovereigns. So what we really need so that open source can be used for our freedom, independent, and sovereigns. A company or maybe institution who can give the professional support. So the one who can be claimed if there are problem in our in the client's implementations, local support, expert support, something like that. And also the one who replacing the position of principal, acting principal. So this is the institution or company who maintaining the source code. If there are some bug, maybe the fix of the bug can be what is it? We can get it from the community, maybe, but maybe not, because this bug occur in one client with a specific functionality or specific implementations. So maybe this bug should be fixed by ourselves. So there should be a company, an institution who can become the principal. So this is, I think, the requirement, the primary requirement. Yeah. And then somebody who can teach, to give training, and then do the research and development. So we can have we can still able to continue to follow the development of the technology which implemented in the open source software. And maybe another thing which we should be understand that if there are some people, some company who can deliver the solution based on the open source, perhaps we should also have a institution, maybe from the government, maybe private, who can evaluate people, giving certification maybe, or evaluate the institution to justify the professionalism of their delivery. Because the client didn't understand which institution who has the professionalism which they are needed, which they need. So another thing is maybe an institution who able to evaluate business conduct. Sorry, this is a person, and it is the A is maybe similar, but it is for the business, for the company, who can create a corridor, how to evaluate and to examine company who deliver the solution to the clients. In overall, we need the ecosystem. We cannot use open source independently without having ecosystem actually. We cannot from the single entity, single company deliver the solution without completing any kind of necessity to make a complete solution to the clients. Actually, we need ecosystem. Now, this one. So I am proposing not only giving the solution based on the open source, but I am proposing also to develop the ecosystem. Maybe for start, we don't need ecosystem. If we wait for the ecosystem, maybe we cannot have some opportunity to deliver. But we have to try to give the solution first, and then in the same time we build the ecosystem. Yes, Ibu Dr.
Yeah, Pak Julyanto, you seem to have a lot of questions.
Okay.
I like the fact that you want to have the ecosystem for business, yeah, for open source.
Yes.
Now, this question comes from Mr. Supi Haris. He asks, what is the impact of using open source technology on the development and growth of technopreneurship businesses in the current state? What's the impact, basically? You promote very much on the ecosystem, but then again, and you also say open source is the infrastructure, right? But what's the impact of using open source technology on the development and growth of technopreneurship? Coming from your experience.
Yes, it's very good impact.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can create more and more technopreneurship, and because by help of open source, it is quite easy for us to start the business. Usually we have to research to create a product, right? We have to have quite a big capital to research, maybe in years, right? To have a product ready for the market.
Mm-hmm.
The readiness for the market and the research itself, it is quite less because you use open source, and the one who tests the open source, not only us, other people in other side of the world also using and testing it, right? So it is lower the barrier to entry of the becoming technopreneur or having a company who delivers solution to the clients in terms of technopreneur.
Right. Just on that note, Mr. Julyanto, can you just share a little bit of experience for the students to be able to understand? I mean, earlier on, I did mention that you're a computer geek, you love, doing computing. And then because you said the open source is something that you can, it's something you reuse, right, to build the infrastructure. But how is it that you build your particular business so that the students, when they, upon graduating, if they're going to embark on this to become a technopreneur, what can they do?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, we have to love the technology, the open source. I mean, my experience when I was in university, I am falling in love with Linux because quite amazing. Since at the time we don't have any free softwares ready, right? So it is quite amazing. We have some software which is very good, but you don't need to pay.
Yes.
And then,
Students always look for free stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think why we don't try to make it as business of this, right? And then I learned why, how we can use open source as business. So at the time, not really much any example for that. Maybe later we know that Red Hat becoming the company who sell the license of Linux commercial. So that's we can call it the Red Hat business model. So I think the Red Hat business model 1 is not really much good because it is maybe good for US, for the developed countries, but I don't think it's good for us in the developing country who don't have any kind of resources, who don't have any ready resources. So I set up my mind to create a business model to deliver solution based on the open source. And I got the momentum actually. I was working in the one company who delivers solution for the banking. So I know the technology, I know the business process in the banking, I know how they do it, I know why they do it. And then one time I'm trying to create a company. That's quite hard in the beginning, but you are having networks and portfolios, yeah. So before we can develop a company portfolios, maybe we should develop our own portfolio to help we can reach the business and we can create the business portfolio. So my friend know me, I can give some solution. So they invite me to present in their company and to solve their problem. So yeah, that's I think the story of my own about having a business in open source.
Yeah, I think it's very good because for the young ones, sometimes, Mr. Julyanto, it's difficult for them to get jobs, right? So
Yes.
some of them had that, something like you, they have that enthusiasm, they have that energy to do their own business. So it's
Yes.
then how they can capitalize open source or they need to see how can they go about this. But thank you. Please proceed, Mr. Julyanto.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think quite interesting to how we can create business from the open source. So yeah, I suggest to students to learn about the technology very deep because we have to able to to replace as a principle. That's quite important, and also we have to create the team. Maybe later I will explain about that in the next slides. So I'll back to this topic. To create ecosystem, the ideal goal of using open source in the business is not as simple as we learn the open source and we give the solution. The first step should be done by us, the people who create the solution for the business, for the vendor, I mean. But we also have to put our energy, some of our energy to help to create ecosystem. This is quite important because without any kind of ecosystem, it's quite hard for us to move on, to grab the market and to win the market. Quite hard. So the ecosystem is combined between government academic and business, we are part of the business. Academic is the source of the capital, the source of the human capital. So, IT company is human capital company. Actually, we need the money capital, but the human itself is the most important and strategic. So therefore, I trying to reach academics, not only in Indonesia, but also outside. For what? For what is it? Recruitment, perhaps. But not only that, we think if academic also understand the necessity of open source and perhaps having some resource to do the research inside, so it can help the business also, and also helping the academic, because this research maybe can become another source of income in the future. And also the government. Open source is something like, abandoned child, a child without parents. Who can become parent? Actually, anybody can become parent, but the right parent is government. Why government? Because it's neutrality. If one company become parents, for example, like Postgres, so maybe it's very hard or very difficult for any other businesses to grab, or maybe it is not wise, because clients having dependencies, something like called vendor login, another vendor login. So government has come into play as the one who create rule, corridor. So any kind of game, rule of the game, it should be coming from the one who has neutrality. And then, of course, the community itself, we have to support, to build, to endorse, to contribute also. So these parties, government, academic, and business, should be in synergy to create a good ecosystem for open source. That's the ideal, the ideal goal. Okay. So actually, I think the first implementation of open source in business, it is started by Red Hat. I call it as Red Hat business model, because they are selling the subscription license. By repackaging the open source, becoming the commercial license, and selling the licensing subscription. So the license who has expiration 1 year. So we have to subscribe every year, so we can use it as part of our solution legally, because the license is subscription. And then after they have a license, subscription license, the business, they are implementing the same way with any kind of proprietary, like distributorship, resellership, etc. So Red Hat, as the principle, doesn't have any direct client service, because maybe it's not really much wise to reach out the client directly. They should use the distributorship, resellership, and etc. So we can call it as Red Hat business model. We have different approach. Our approach, we call it Equinix business model. We wanted to deliver the benefit of open source directly to the clients. So we don't relicense. Actually, I should admit to everybody here, Equinix has open source delivery solution, but we also has a license. But this license is different kind of market. We're still able to deliver the open source based license. So when we deliver the solution to the client, what we deliver is a subscription, but subscription for the maintenance, or for the manage, not for the license, because the license is open source. So when the client, perhaps in whatever reason, doesn't want to continue the subscription, it is free for them to decide. They don't need to depend to us. Or maybe they can change to any other people who maybe can deliver better and cheaper subscription. So this is we call it Equinix business model. We wanted to deliver the biggest benefit of using open source directly to the client. And we don't create distributorship, but we create this partnership. We can becoming partner with other vendors, and this vendor deliver directly to the client, and we support this vendor in back-to-back. So we believe to use open source, we have to have personal touch. We have to be able to come to their side if there are problems. Yeah, maybe right now most corporate wanted to put their system into clouds. So maybe not sit in the clients anymore, maybe sit in the home, but serving the clients cloud installations. At least we can come and meeting with them directly in their office to explain, to help, to becoming their consultant, to resolve the problem, maybe to discuss about capacity planning or in the future implementation. So we can choose which business model that we like to implement or to use, or maybe we can create another business model. So there are some other business model actually, but mostly I just put these two as a reference for comparisons. The Red Hat business model may be good. There are some opportunity becoming the principle itself. And also the Equinix is quite easier to implement. And yeah, we can say that this is more local solution. It is indeed, yes. We're trying to close to the client, because our client in the developing country like Indonesia, they are not really much familiar with open source, not really much familiar with technology, right? So how they can use the open source, they have to understand, or at least they know the people. And for example, like if I approach clients, we conduct some meetings, conduct some demo, or maybe POC. So we ensure the implementation is very good, and we ensure if there are some problem, we will come in a fast manner and solve the problem. So the close communication with client is quite important, while the trust is very low in the beginning. And then with the good communications, good support, we increase their trust, and then they're quite happy with us by the end. That's the comparison of this model that I can explain, I offer to you. Maybe you want to discuss about this, go ahead, no problem. Okay, so I will explain more about what is Equinix business model. So we, what is it? Categorize or divide, yeah? We divide the service to the client into 4 layers. Maintenance support is layer 3, 2, and 1. And managed support is layer 3, 2, 1, and 0. So managed support is more complete than maintenance. So I'll explain starting from layer 3. Layer 3 is a root cause analysis and resolution. Actually, it's a principal level support. So any kind of bug fixing, what is it, performance assurance, scalability, any kind of relate to the architecture of the system, it is part of the principal level support. We can make it simple. It is the one who did by the principal, like bug fixing. And then second, layer 2. Layer 2 is expert level support. In this case is a Postgres SQL, yeah. So we do a slow query resolution, configurations, tuning, fine tuning, and then we can becoming their counterpart for consulting system, like for example, like capacity planning and then sizings and SA, anything related to the production system. This is the expert level support. And level 1, technology support. So this kind of support to accepting the escalations from clients. When client has problem, maybe their help desk or the operation staff do the troubleshooting and they cannot cannot find out the problem. They can raise to us. They can escalate to our technical support. So we can conduct on-site for the corrective maintenance. Before on-site, maybe we will do on-phone, email, etc. And then we can conduct like a standby support. For example, like they wanted to move their system from one side to another side, or maybe to change to another rack, but they doesn't want to having very long downtime. Maybe we can help them by standby. So if they have problem, they just call and we will help them directly without any hassle and any delay. So this technology support is the one who touches directly to the clients. Even better, if the client doesn't have any DBA, or maybe doesn't have any expertise in operation of Postgres, they can use our operational support. This operation support will conduct operational day-to-day, like DBA, or maybe just remote DBA. We can do the preventive maintenance, and then do the close monitoring if needed, and then something like operation, like help some people to check the query, perhaps why it is slow, to first hand in the system, the help desk. It is possible. So by having this complete of level of services is to ensure the client can use the open source completely without any hassle, without any hesitance, because we completed the service from level 3, 2, 1, and 0.
Pak Julyanto?
Yes.
Okay, this is not a question from the audience, but from myself.
Okay.
Because you were talking about security on the support level, right?
Yeah.
But how can technopreneurs actually address potential challenges related to security and vulnerability management when they are utilizing the open source software? How do they go about?
Okay, so actually, that's part of the delivery. For example, like we do the services on Postgres RDBMS. So how we can ensure the security for the Postgres? So that's one aspect that we should understand, how we can ensure the security for RDBMS. Actually, it is not independent. Security always relate to any other of system, like networks. Maybe there's a operating system also. So we have to understand how to harden the Postgres, align with how to harden the OS beneath the Postgres, and also what is the topology.
Okay.
That should be learned by the technopreneur to understand the security in the system, in their solution.
Right. So they need to have that fundamental knowledge first on how to go about the security, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. Please proceed, Mr. Pak Julyanto.
Thank you. Okay. So that's a very good question from Ms. Yazrina. Yeah, security is something like pervasive. We have to understand security in every part of our solution. Okay, so after we understand the level of services, and then maybe I'll explain to you about the another aspect of services that we conduct to the clients. That maybe this is quite quite interesting because Oracle is very the market leader of RDBMS in the world. Eventually, there are many people trying or wanted to migrate from Oracle to Postgres. I think, once I come to Malaysia, maybe in the last couple of weeks, and meeting with Dr. Before we talk with Dr. Yazrina, I met with the guy, Dr.
Lam.
Yeah, Dr. Lam. Yeah. Actually, at the time I was meeting with one of big client in Malaysia. They wanted to migrate all of Oracle into Postgres. There are hundreds. So the migration from Oracle to Postgres, it is needed by them, by the clients. Not only in Malaysia, actually. In Indonesia, we have maybe about 30 up to 40% clients wanted to migrate from Oracle to Postgres. So this is quite important because the needs is there, exist. And the migration is quite strategic because not only the cost is one thing, and actually if they are migrate from Oracle to Postgres, they will cut costs. But the most important thing, how to migrate, what is the steps, and what is the risk, how we mitigate the risk, and how we ensure this migration didn't affect their production system, the operational. That's the most important. So learning how to migrate from Oracle to Postgres, it is a good investment. So I explained a bit about this one. These stages and these steps is found by us. It is not there in the internet. We don't have it any reference whatsoever in the internet on how we conduct the migration from Oracle to Postgres. So what we do research. We understand the system. We understand the Oracle. We understand the needs of the client. We understand the technology that you use for migration, like for example, like ETL, and then the system of the operating system. Somehow we have to create our own tool to support this migration. So I explained a bit about this one. Maybe you have some insight about how we can create a solution in the future based on the needs of the clients. So first of all, we have to understand the system. We do the system orientations. So for example, like how many line of code that they have, what is plugin that they implement in the Oracle whatsoever, and then conversion. It is convert the line of code because the major issue or problem in migration from Oracle to Postgres, it is the source code, the store procedure, the package functions. So we have to convert from Oracle PLSQL to Postgres PLPGSQL. In conversion, we have to analyze and to check the syntax and etc. unit tests. So we have a preliminary test. This test is a preliminary test for the source code that converted from the Oracle, and then we have to do some unit tests, and then integration test with any others modules. And before we conduct the rundown, we can create the rundown well. We have to do so from the preliminary test we conduct integration test, compatibility test, and then we report stage report. After this report, we have to have the draft rundown. this draft rundown should be tested by doing rehearse. Because we cannot depend on the plan which is not proven yet. So the draft rundown is the plan, and we conduct rehearse to test or to prove the plan. And maybe we will do the two times, one time or two time rehearsal to test the plan, to ensure this rundown is tuned well with the situation, the requirement, and we have to test in the same time that we wanted to use the system migration. For example, like if this system should be shut off in the midnight, or we should be shut off in the weekend, we have to do it the rehearsal in the same time to ensure any kind of factor that perhaps occur in the system migration also occur in the rehearsal. And then after rehearsal, we fine-tune the draft and we got the final rundown. And before we conduct the rundown, the system migration, maybe we can do the brainstorming to discuss with any party, for example, like network guy, maybe maybe the business guy, because it will impact the business if perhaps the downtime is took longer than expected, for example, like that. And then we conduct the most important thing is system migration. After that, we have to do the close monitoring and final report. That's roughly explanation about how we conduct the migration from Oracle to Postgres. And usually that we migrate is something like a production system using by millions of users. Okay, if you have any questions, please go ahead, no problem. I'll continue. This is an example, one example of our route to implement Postgres to replacing Oracle in our biggest bank in Indonesia. Actually, it is far beyond the 500 core, but I can tell you more than 500 core in Postgres using in this building. So I hope that the information can give you insight and courage and motivation to you to becoming technopreneur in adopting or using open source in the business for strengthening our society. This is another test that we conduct to Postgres. 11DB Postgres is our version of Postgres, but actually we can consider the same with the Postgres. You know that one processor of AMD EPIC is the latest one, EPIC 9654. It is, I think, 96 core. We can have 26,000 query per second. This is quite big, yeah. Compared to IBM Power 8, only 27,000. It is Intel 2 processor. This is 4 processor. So in this graph, I just telling you, for example, like Postgres, it's quite powerful. And also the hardware itself, the processor, AMD EPIC. So we don't only research the Postgres, the database, we also research the security, we research the operating system, we research the network. We also trying to understand on how computer works in the very primitive way, like the processors. So we understand that the right processor to use on Postgres for the RDBMS right now, it is AMD EPIC. So we can suggest clients. So we don't only give the solution and query tuning to the clients, but we also give them a complete solution up to the hardware if they are requiring. So these tests show that one processor can run very fast to solve the problem of RDBMS. This is a TBCB. We can understand that there are some tests for the RDBMS. There's a TBCB, TBCC, I use DBCB for this example. So we can know very well that Postgres is quite efficient, can harness the greatest performance of hardware up to the maximum. So we can see that with 96 core, we can have 426 thousands more per second. Yep, that's perhaps can give you another insight. So yeah, we have to do very much of our homework to learn most delivery that we conduct to the client from the database, operating system, security, network, up to the hardware. So maybe what is the pain and the challenge that we are facing? Maybe can be shared to any audience. So starting the idea is requiring great energy. So we have to do some many things, many homework like market research, conduct brainstorming, SWOT analysis, and etc. Yeah? And we have to carry out the delivery carefully with a great quality, because the user very limited tolerance in adopting product from open source. Once they fail, maybe they don't want to use it in the future. Yeah, we have to create our own team ourselves, because we cannot seek people from outside. We have to understand the talent that the potential talent from the people, and we have to train them, make them understand the not only the technology but also the vision of the company. So we have to build the team ourselves. So after that, we have to maintain the spirit, because what we do actually is not like any other's team, any other business, a bit special, because we have to understand the technology. We also have to understand how our clients' expectations. We have to give them solution, not only give the what they need, but give more than what they need. So more time and resource to do preparation than any other business. Yeah, I think to do the Technopreneurship, maybe doing the hardest thing. So we have to have very much resources, time, to learn, to study, to understand, time also to do the analysis, time to market, because this is a good challenge. It's very challenging opportunity. So what is the suggestion? Yeah, we have to very much understand, and very much to understand the relation from the industry needs to the open source, what open source can provide for their needs. So we have to understand the relations. So we have to very good in learning and studying the subject matter. We have to understand the every corner and edges. For example, like Postgres, we understand how they what is the good position of using Postgres in the bank. For example, like for the OLTP or OLAP, etc. And how we can create replication, high availability, and etc. So we have to understand very much, very well. So we should becoming the solution provider to the clients, not only selling the product that they need, but also give them solution, give them advice, give them complete solution, not only the one product or two product, but end-to-end solution. So yeah, we have to build carefully, because somehow we will need researcher, but researcher and developer maybe same people, and support something, technical supporters, something like that. So we have to always remember this human capital company. Your team is your family. yeah, we use this equal opportunity based on merit. We have to treat people based on their merit. Just do your best. Let the universe do the rest. Yeah, I think it is done. The explanation about this discussion, about this talk. This is some picture that we have for the community, and we sharing to the academics in Indonesia, postgraduate conference in Asia, in Japan, Singapore, and also we held the postgraduate conference also in Bali in 2019. Yeah. Questions?
Okay. All right. I think we've covered most of the questions, Pak Julyanto, during the session, right? But I would say now, thank you for an informative session. Now, if I may recap, yeah, for the audience who had joined in the middle or, somewhere towards the tail end. In recap, in short, what you have mentioned, it is indeed true. Okay, because you've mentioned about technopreneurship, where we contribute back to the society. And most importantly is for one, to understand why open source, right? Why do you need to use open source? For the fellow students who are around, who are listening, now open source, like you say, is free. Okay, you don't have to purchase. It's something that you can use. And it is indeed very sustainable. Okay, so all of us are going on these SDGs, sustainable development goals, all right? So using open source actually helps reduce electronic waste. Why? Because it is energy efficient, all right? And it is also reusable. So that's one of the sustainable concepts. And technopreneurship, combining with technopreneurship with open source in mind, and the other provides a sustainable business model. So however, like you said, there must be a different kind of business model when one wants to embark on the business adventure. So much that we learned from you, Pak Julyanto, okay, on how to be a successful technopreneur. I like the last part, particularly on the challenges, the pain, and what do we need to do? Because most importantly, for those who are actually venturing into technopreneurship, one has definitely must know back to back, must be tech savvy, understand what the technology that they want to use. Yeah, be it in security, be it in the infrastructure, be it every single thing. I mean, you really have to know it very well before you embark on that business, before you embark on using it, to promote to other businesses. So thank you very much, Pak Julyanto, all right, for the insightful talk. And it is hope, for the audience, particularly the students, the young ones who wants to venture, all right, into technopreneurship. And definitely later, once you, upon graduation, you want to work with Equinix or you want to collaborate with them, definitely you can be in touch, I'm sure, with Pak Julyanto.
Yes.
And Pak Julyanto, if in any cases they want to pursue in this area, they want to work with Equinix or collaborate with you, how do they go about it? That's the last question that I have.
Yes, thank you. Actually, we open for any kind of opportunity for students or also for the university. We open for any kind of internship, employmentship, and then joint research, and also we have talked with Mr. Ram last time about having what is it, the tutorial for the projects. We also for that, yeah.
Okay,
so somebody who wanted to join or maybe to collaborate with us, we open also. We can discuss maybe later. Maybe I'll put some email in the chat, or
yes, please. You put the email in the chat box in the Zoom. We'll post it up on the Facebook chat for the students to be able to see. All right. So that would be good, definitely, particularly for the young ones who really want to venture and learn from you. I think the best platform is for them if they have internship, or if any of their research work related to open source. That's something that they can learn from you as well. Yeah. Okay. Now, all right. Thank you so much once again. And thank you from all of us at FTSM. And we shall look forward to meet you face to face, because I've not met you face to face. We've just met online, in the future. And to the rest of the audience, there shall be more emerging technologies webinar series in the future, which will benefit you and your future in your future. So stay tuned with us and watch the space. All right. Now,
Okay.
before you guys go off, all right, there is that information, info@equinix.asia. All right, we'll post it up in the Facebook chat. And for those of you who have attended, thank you once again. And then don't forget, all right, to, I think I must get the technical team to put up the QR code and also the link for the audiences to actually fill in for them to get the e-certificate. Thank you, Pak Julyanto. Thank you, Miss
I'm
Anissa.
also the one who thanks
Yeah.
to you and to
All right.
everybody in UGM.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay, then. Hoping to see you again.
See you. Bye.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.